Merkel Media.
What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Look, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Daylight NBC.
Jack Marius Tack-Theratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him.
Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Muammar Gaddafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles and were locked down?
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to the Microaggressions and Ripple Effect podcast Swapcast. This week, it's me, Charlie Robinson, Ricky Varandas, the Ripple Effect podcast, and I'll just do my quick ads really quick. ChemicalFreeBody.com is the place to go. Promo code is macro. If you want to get healthy for this new year, you're going to have to do it yourself, so take a look at that. And also Legal Shield, if you need access to a high-powered attorney in your area for $1 a day, $30 a month, it's a pretty good deal. Go to don'tgetpushedaround.com and you can find out everything that you need to know about that. Also, I'll be in Mexico hosting Anarchapulco 2024. If you're interested in going, get yourself a ticket and get to anarchapulco.com and use the discount code macro. If you are interested in just streaming it and watching it and not going to Mexico, that's cool too. Same thing applies. Anarchapulco.com. Discount code is macro. And there's Ricky over there. And what is your discount code, Ricky?
For what? For
I
was gonna. I'm like, I don't have any discount. I mean, yeah. Well, it was funny because we're talking about like sponsors and like if I for the longest time, and I almost felt guilty, but for the longest time, like, you know, I'm not going to get sponsors. I'm not going to get sponsors. And then I had Richard Grove from the University of Reason and you know, a dear friend of mine kind of reach out, and I'm just like, you know, I'm like, I like his work. I'm like, oh, but I really don't want sponsors. And then when I had Rob Wolf on from Element Electrolytes, you know, I was a big fan of his. And then he's like, hey, you want to make it? And I'm just like, you know what? I guess having just cool shit that we like isn't the worst thing. And it helps a little bit. And I wish I didn't need sponsors. But it does help. I mean, people who was I just talking to recently that was, actually the Nature Boy, not Ric Flair, but the other Nature Boy. That, he you know, he was talking about, like, he's like, I didn't realize all the money and expenses in like equipment and bandwidth and IT stuff and, you know, all this stuff that kind of adds up a little bit. And, you know, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of money, but when you're putting money into something that's not really giving you any back, it can, you know, it can be a little bit, it seem like, hey, you know what, it would be nice for it to pay for itself. And I think that's one of the reasons why I eventually did the merch thing and then did the Patreon thing and all these other things that just kind of help pay for itself and justify. Because I mean, we all have families, we all have other priorities, and it's like I love doing this, but it is hard for me to sometimes think like, okay, I have a full-time job that actually helps pay the bills and help put food on the table for my kids. And if I'm neglecting that for only for the passion project that's not doing that, like sometimes I feel guilty.
Me too. Yeah. And I feel the same way. It's like the relationship that we have with sponsors. It's like I come out of I have a marketing degree. I worked at an ad agency. I understand this relationship. And I understand that there is a point at which it gets gross. You know what I mean? If you're dealing with sponsors that are ideologically not in alignment with you, I couldn't do it. You know, I figure like there's enough brands out there. I don't have to, I mean, I'm never going to have Monsanto brings you this podcast. It's just not going to happen. So, but I do think that there's value in finding brands that you do align with you and that you do use. Like for me, like for Chemical Free Body, I drink Green 85 every single morning. No bullshit. And I buy it the way my customers buy it. Promo code macro at the thing. You know, Tim James doesn't give me he didn't send me boxes of it. It's not like, oh, here you go. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if he did, but he doesn't. He's running a small business himself. I wouldn't expect him to do that. But I like the products and they work. You know, and in an industry where a lot of stuff doesn't work, I like that. And I've gotten to know my sponsors over the years. And I really liked like C60 Purple Power is one that's local to me. I went to their Christmas party this year. My wife and daughter and we got invited. We had dinner with the owner and the CEO and all of the whole team. Like they didn't have to do that. I like them. They like the content. They make a product that has nothing to do with our content like at all, but they make a product that's super interesting and really actually works. And the guys that discovered it won the Nobel Prize in medicine for discovering the carbon 60 molecule. It's like kind of a big deal, you know? And so when I got connected with them, it's like everything needs to work. The product has to be good, but also the management of the people I'm dealing with. I'm not going to tolerate bullshit from somebody. I don't need it that bad. You know what I mean? But it's like, if I do have to have sponsors, and in this particular case, I do, for the same reasons you have, I would love for this to just be like, oh, I can just go do my passion project and money is no object. Well, unfortunately, in my current paradigm, money is an object and I have to have some in order to justify doing this. And so if that's going to be the case, if that's sort of the behind the scenes of it, then then my obligation to the audience and to myself is to make sure that I bring products that are good, services, and products that work, that are not scams, that aren't some like pyramid scheme or a product that I mean, like if you're talking about vitamins and supplements, like automatically, like half the industries are half the industry's garbage, and we know that, So it's like when you find a good vitamin maker, supplement maker, you hang on to them. One of the funniest things, Ricky, I ever heard was Tim James talking about his formulator for his products, and he said to me, "I have the second best formulator for my stuff in all of the supplements business." I was like, "Damn, that's really impressive. That's amazing." In fact, like the second best guy, and then of course the follow up question is, okay, so I have to ask, if you've got the second best guy, who's got the best guy? And he said, Alex Jones. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah. He said, of all the people that make vitamins out there, the formulators are what matter more so than like the people that represent them. But he says the guy that makes Alex Jones for vitamins, super male vitality, all that stuff. He said is the best guy in the business. I was like, wow, I'm actually surprised. I would have thought that, I don't know why. I would have thought like, oh, you could cut corners on this if you're Alex, right? You could put sawdust in it or whatever, and like give it. But in actuality, it was so anyway. If you don't get your stuff from Chemical Free Body, I guess Alex Jones is a good place to go too as a backup if you're in a pinch. And actually, I know my business partner in Vegas, she buys his stuff. And she said of all of for the years in which she was trying to get this one component of her health fixed, she could never find it. But until she started buying this stuff from InfoWars, she said it was the one supplement that actually helped her. And I was like, wow, really? So now I'm hearing it from two different people that Alex Jones has good stuff. So.
Well, the supplement industry is full of just great marketing and shitty products. So a lot of it, I see it all the time. Like I'll go through ingredients and they don't give you the dosages. They just like they group a bunch of ingredients together and they say, oh, there's this much. I'm like, well, how much of each specific ingredient? And they also the quality of ingredients. They lie about the all that stuff, and it's hard to find really good products out there. I mean, there are a few good brands, but the ones that have been around for a while, the ones that that don't overcharge you or spend too much time just marketing or copying other companies. There's just, especially in the supplement industry and the vitamin industry, there's a lot of that. In the supplement industry, there's even more of that with like just all the young kids who are gym rats who want to get big, and then so everything says like burn fat, get huge, massive pumps, and then all they do is like just put a bunch of cheap synthetic caffeine in it that gives you a head rush, and you feel like it's working and it's really not, or in some cases it could even be dangerous. And so yeah, I mean but that's kind of amazing that he cares that much about what he's selling, because I mean the supplements that he sells, it's a huge part of what makes InfoWars money. I mean they always talk about like how they that they do really well with, like, he's constantly talking about this product sold out, that product sold out. And coming from somebody who takes a lot of vitamins and supplements, sometimes I'll look at the ingredients. I'm like, what's in this? And they really, I don't know the quality of the ingredients, but I know that whoever's formulating them are putting stuff that actually is, well known to be useful for those things. So when he's putting in or selling you a testosterone booster, I look at the ingredients. It's like, no, these are herbs that I'm aware of that help with testosterone. And so it's like, I know that's whoever's formulating it knows their shit, that they're putting that they are aware of these natural remedies and what they're useful for. So but I know that Podomatic, where I post my audio podcasts, they are going to do, hopefully this year, they're talking about putting ads. I forget what it's called. When they put ads in front of, I think you do it, right? They put ads in front.
Dynamic ads. Yeah, we do it for this. You don't get to choose. For those of you that have emailed me in the past, going, how dare you run a McDonald's ad in the beginning of your show? I don't control those ads. Those are dynamic ads. That's set up differently. Those are the ones that, and they're dynamic in the sense that if you listen to one of my podcasts from 4 years ago, the ad that's going to run at the beginning of that will be relevant today. It will be dynamic in that it will be customized to when you listen to it, not when it was recorded, because they can switch that in and out. And for my show, I do a 30-second one at the beginning, and then there's that at the very end. So, but again, you can kind of set that up. You can say, I don't want this, I don't want that. I have heard, I kind of jokingly said, this show will never be brought to you by Monsanto. I actually did hear an ad for Pfizer run at the beginning of my podcast once, and it cracked me up. I wasn't offended like most people were like, how dare you run that? It wasn't my choice. Clearly, I didn't do it. I laughed because it's like, oh, talk about flushing your money down the toilet, Pfizer. Like, you're advertising to my audience, to your audience, same thing. Like, good luck with that. Like, you are really just wasting your money. So there's part of me that thought it was kind of funny to laugh. And now, Ricky, since I have listened to, I've been in Acapulco a bunch of times and gone back and forth to Mexico, like with family, just in general. And I've listened to podcasts while I was in Mexico. Now the algorithm from time to time will give me ads in Spanish, which is kind of weird. So it doesn't know me that well. But the dynamic ads are something that yeah, you can set it up in a way that they run. I mean, I think there's some, I don't do that. Tony Merkel, who's my partner, manages all that back end stuff. And I think he set it up in a way that it's like certain things are kind of off limits. I don't know how the Pfizer ad snuck in there, because I'm pretty sure we said like no big pharma. If that was an option, it would have been clicked like no big pharma.
Yeah, but you know what? They're idiots then. Like you said, you're flushing. It's no different. So Podomatic, I've been talking to the founders or creators like last year and stuff. They're actually really cool. They like to get feedback from podcasters, and they're really open to suggestions and stuff. And that's actually one thing I suggested to them, because that's one thing they don't have on their platform, those dynamic ads. And I was thinking, I'm like, okay, if they do get that, would I use it? And then I'm like, you know what? Like when I've listened to your podcast, and when I've listened to like Tim Pools or whoever, and I hear some random ad in the beginning of the podcast, like it doesn't, like I can fast forward it. It's not a big deal. It's like a commercial on TV. Like it's, you know, it's there, but it doesn't affect my experience with the show. And unless it's media, because then Big Pharma is affecting my experience with the show. But if it's like some TV series or whatever, you know, whatever I'm watching, or some sports game, and so to me, it's like I'm like I probably would do it because I'm like if somebody like Big Food or Big Pharma was dumb enough to put a ad in front of my show, so they're spending money putting an ad in front of a show that goes into a 90-minute rant about how bad they suck and how people shouldn't use their product. Like you said, they're just basically blowing money away. So, you know, what do I care? And if I can milk that cow and get something out of the companies that I'm bashing, like I can bash them and also get some revenue from them, then why not? You know, it's better. It's definitely better than like if I'm reading ads, like, you know, like you do, and I'll do my intros and I'll do, you know, just I got 3 sponsors: Element, Content Safe, and University of Reason. So that it's easy. And so if I'm just doing, you know, reminding people to check out those sponsors, then it has to be brands and companies and people I like. But if it's just something that's like inputted before my show, I don't care. But it does, you know, one thing that does bother me is like as hard as we push against like marketing and, you know, sponsorships and all that stuff, because we know like eventually in time, even if subconsciously you don't even know it, but subconsciously it's affecting your product. You know, if it could be avoided completely, it'd be great. But unfortunately, listeners just don't really, they don't support shows that they like because there's so much free content out there that you just have this feeling of like, okay, there's so much free content out there, so why pay for any of it? And like, somebody's giving them donations, so I don't have to. Like somebody is, you know, buying their merch or using the code, so you feel like, okay, I can kind of, you know, just enjoy this for free. But I've been, you know, I've said it in one of my intros recently. I'm like, I give the Highwire donations. You know, I'm set up on ICANN. I've been giving James Corbett. He's the longest one. I've been donating forever because I consume so much of their product and their information and their content that I felt guilty not donating something. And James was like one of the first people on my show, and I learned so much from Corbett Report, especially in the early days and when I was new to a lot of these topics. And you know, I'm just like, I feel guilty not giving something. And you know, so it's like to me, it's like I would hope that especially the regulars, because like I always say, the second you upload a show, just like when the second I upload a show, I'll get a couple thousand downloads immediately, and I'm like, there's somebody there waiting for that new episode to be uploaded. And it's like, why aren't they downloading, or why aren't they donating something? But again, we just live in a world where there's so much free stuff. I mean, I have conversations with other parents and they're like, oh, kids are lazy today, kids are this, and I'm just like, the world has changed. When we were growing up, and you know, we're roughly the same age, everything we wanted in life, everything that brought us enjoyment required money. You know, if we wanted a new album, new cassette, new CD, whatever it was, we knew that we had to work for it some way, gather some money so we can go to the, you know, the Strawberries or the FYI or whatever the hell the you know, the record store was called, to get that album that we wanted. If we wanted to go to the movies, we needed money. If we wanted to even just drive to go to the movies or go to the record store, we needed gas money or money to pay for insurance. If we wanted to connect with our friends, whatever, like we had to drive somewhere. So everything required money. Today, we live in a world where kids with a tablet, a smartphone, a smartwatch, they can just get free Wi-Fi anywhere and have access to all those movies and music and information and books and friends, right? Because they can hit up their friends on Instagram or Facebook or wherever. And so like they've lost that need for money. So I think that it's more of a cultural change than it is like this thing like people are lazy. I just think that like money was a means to an end, and today it's just not required.
For the last 20 plus years, I have been in a world of, I've been on full commission. for my entire life. I mean, the idea of having a salary is crazy to me because I've been in real estate forever. I was all, you eat what you kill, that sort of thing. And there's no cap on the upside to that. There's also, you know, the floor is $0. And so when I sort of I'm comfortable with that because I'm confident in my ability to sell when I was in real estate. And if the question was, would you like to have a salary and be capped at that, or have no salary and no floor, but you're uncapped at the top? And I'd said, I want to be uncapped because when I kick the shit out of everybody in this sales office, I want to make more money than them. And if I can't make more money than them, then I'm not going to try very hard to kick the shit out of them. You know what I mean? It's just common nature. So when it came to the podcast and when it came to like setting up all of the sponsors and things like that, I don't get paid for reading anything. I don't get paid for reading, saying go to chemical free body. I only make money when people use that promo code. So I like the fact that our interests are aligned. You know what I mean? And then it puts the sort of the pressure on me to make sure that I find brands that are good for the audience. And the best way I can find brands that are good for the audience is find brands that are good for me. Things that I use, that I actually use, not some like, oh, get this, super polydent. It's like, oh, do you have dentures? Like, no. What the fuck are you talking? So like for me, if I talk about some of these brand Legal Shield, I have Legal Shield, chemical free, but I use it. C60 Purple Power, I use it every day. These are the things that I've incorporated into my life, and I use them. So like, I like the idea of that, and I like the idea of saying to the audience, like, I did my research on this product and on the people behind the product, and I like it. And I like them, and they seem good, and they're and it works for me. And if it works for me, it theoretically it should work for you. And if it doesn't, then I don't make any money. So I have to get that right. I can't go do promo code Pfizer or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, because the audience will go, are you out of your mind? We're not doing any of that. And then I would make no money. So again, it's like you have to take care of the audience. I think the relationship that the audience, they understand that, like, look, we live in a world where there's advertising. But there's also a right way and a wrong way to do it too. I mean, you could represent some really bad brands and look stupid doing that. Or, if you have to do advertising, the very least is like you've got Content Safe, you've got University of Reason. I've got University of Reason too. Part of the reason why I have them, if you go to my new website, you find like in the partners page, you find University of Reason. Part of the reason why they're on there is because they're doing really cool stuff. Like it's like, I would suggest people not even go to college. Go to University of Reason instead. If you want to just be educated on things, and I'm not talking about getting a degree and going to a job interview and saying, oh, I have this 4-year degree from something. But if you want to actually learn things, oh my God, that place is a million times better than any college. It's just so, so again, as long as we're like intellectually honest and upfront about it too, like, hey, we make money on this. I'm not getting, nobody's getting rich on that. I mean, maybe if you're Rogan or something, but like you have to do you have to do like YouTube gamer numbers to get rich doing this. And we're just not doing it. We're not allowed to do that. I think the podcast world is very, very different than the gaming world, the YouTube numbers. If people like knew like the download numbers that podcasts get, and they compare that to the download, like the viewer numbers that gamers get, they'd be like, nobody's listening to these podcasts at all. Well, they are. They just have a different relationship, a much deeper relationship. They're not just watching, 3 minutes of some dude playing video games against himself on YouTube. Like, I don't understand why anyone would want to watch it. And it's like, well, he's got 18 million followers. Like, how? Who? What are they doing? What the fuck are they? What is that? Why are you watching you're watching some other guy play video games? A video of it? Like, why? I don't understand that, man. I feel old. And I love video games too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting on video games. I'm just, watching somebody else play video games, and that's an industry, that's wild to me.
I try to understand it because my kids do it, and mostly my son. And I'm like, okay, is it like watching somebody, like you could either go play soccer, or sometimes you like to just watch somebody else who's really good at playing soccer. Is it similar to that? And that's kind of like the conclusion I've come to is like, okay, it's just, you're basically watching somebody who's just really good at a video game, and maybe you can pick up on some tips, some hints, learn some things, and some of them are just entertaining. Like, for example, my son likes iShowSpeed. He's a streamer, he's a gamer. I'm not sure what he's famous for. I think he's just a gamer. But some of these gamers aren't even good at games. Like, they're just entertaining. And iShowSpeed is just, he's kind of funny. Like, at first I'm like, this dude is just a clown. And then every once in a while I'm like, oh, he kind of makes me laugh every once in a while. And I'm like, I get it, you know? And it's just like, I think that's a part of it. It's like just kind of mindless entertainment. And so that's a part of it. Some of these guys have really understood, like, hey, let me just be silly. I don't have to have really intellectual content or say anything profound. I just, be silly, say some stupid shit, like be over the top, maybe say some controversial stuff. But it's not, the one thing that does piss me off about the whole streaming thing, it's like, it's an unfair battle, right? Like, because they don't offend anybody per se, or they're not a threat to any establishment per se, they can just put out content, and then they're in the world of like capitalism. Like, it's just like, let the best content win, right? And if you hit the right algorithm, and I know a kid locally who works at Soccer City. It's like a soccer shop, and they have indoor fields and whatnot. So I know the owners and stuff, and we spend a lot of time there. And one of the kids there, right, I was talking to him, and he was like, oh, you got a podcast, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I got an Instagram page, this and that. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, I'll follow you. He was talking about how he like shows kids how to do like little tricks and skills. So I go on his page. I'm like, dude, you have like, I don't know what number it was. It was something ridiculous, like 100,000 followers on Instagram. And I'm like, how the hell did you get? I'm like, as somebody who makes content and spends a little bit of time on social media, I'm like, I'm just curious, how the hell did you get 100,000 followers? And then he's like, and he said, literally overnight, he would making these videos, and overnight, like, he just Instagram for some reason started suggesting his page to people, and overnight his numbers just started blowing up. And I was like, I'm listening to him tell the story, like how like all of a sudden he's getting DM'd, and there's all these people commenting on his content and all this stuff. It just happened overnight. He was just like, he didn't change anything. His videos didn't get better quality. And I'm like, listening to him tell the story, and I'm happy for him and angry at the same time, because I'm like, this sucks, because people like you and I will never have that luck. We'll never have that opportunity, because they suppress shows like ours. And that's why like listeners' support and help is so important. Even if it is like, I tell people, I'm like, my stuff's open source. Post it wherever you want. Upload it wherever you want. I'm like, I don't care. Just get the show out there. That's all I care about. And except this one, because it's a swapcast, and I don't know if Charlie's okay with that. So I don't want to speak for Charlie. But from my personal view,
get the show out there. I want people to hear it. That's the most important thing. If in the process of hearing it, you hear about some brands that are cool, and you want to support them, it helps to support the show, and I definitely appreciate it. If you want to fast forward through the ads at the beginning of my show, I understand that too. I totally do. I get that.
On my videos, I actually
we're good. It's what I mean. I don't care.
I don't know if people know this, but I'm sure some people have picked up on it. But like in the intro of my videos, so the video version of the episodes, you'll have like words coming up and a caption coming up, and I'll say like, okay, you can fast forward the intro and to this number, 5 minutes in, 6 minutes in, whatever. Right. And I let people know when the actual conversation starts, so they can skip it if they want. Like, I'm like you, like, I don't, I hated ads and marketing. I mean, that Bill Hicks joke, like if you're a marketer,
kill yourself.
Yeah, kill yourself. Because it really is, it's deception. It's selling you stuff you don't need. It's taking advantage of young people. I mean, like fashion, like high fashion is like the high fashion, high art, like all this, like it's such bullshit. Like, you're literally convincing people something is cool. Like, how many you're a sports guy, how many times have you watched the NFL? I don't watch a whole lot of NFL, but I just recently, like, I was watching highlights of like a game, and a couple athletes were coming to the stadium, walking in, and they dress a lot like NBA players, and I watch a lot of NBA where they just dress like idiots, and I'm just like, who told you that like? And that's the thing about athletes. I'm like, you guys think because of some like really well-known famous fashion designer told you this is cool, or they designed this, that it's cool. But you've been so focused on sports, you don't realize that you look like an idiot, and and that they've tricked you into believing that what you're wearing makes sense. It makes zero sense. It never catches on. Like, it's not like these, like, Westbrook is notorious for it. Like, Westbrook wears the most stupid things ever, and
shorts,
it's
like dress like a suit but with shorts, and then like knee-high black socks, and it's like, this look is never going to catch on. I don't care how many triple doubles you have. It's you look LeBron James. You know how they're the they're walking in the bus, off the bus and everything. He's walking in his fancy. He's got his book in his hand. He's always on page 1. He walks in with the new outfit on, and you're like, you know what my favorite is though. Lately they've been doing it with the NHL guys, and the NHL guys are my favorite guys because I come out of the media training for pro athletes industry where we started our company, and we had a ton of hockey guys. They're the best people they're the best of all the pro athletes out there. MMA or the realist for sure, and the MMA and the hockey guys are the realist for sure. Everybody else, there's a bit of pretense there, but they've started doing this for the hockey guys. And I was watching it at the gym a couple days ago, and I saw I think it was Bergeron from the Boston Bruins coming in, getting it, walking around the corner, and they showed him. And then they showed him in like slow motion as they were going to a commercial before like in the pregame. Watch, he's wearing like a full pink suit, like a zoot suit, and it's pink. It was Pepto-Bismol pink, walking around. And I was like, damn, man, like he looked so ridiculous that you almost had to kind of respect it. Like it was at that level where it's like, I can't tell if you're trying to look good or trying to look retarded. But it's kind of both. It's like you could tell it was an expensive suit, and it was definitely pink, and he's a white guy. And let's be honest, white guys in pink suits, very hard to pull off, as opposed to a black guy in a pink suit, which could make it look kind of cool for some reason. I don't know why, but it can. The white guy in the pink suit looks so ridiculous that I had to laugh, and I was like, oh, I kind of like his style. And I watched that game, and he scored within the first minute of the game, which it must be the pink suit. So I don't know, man.
Well, that's why you look at these fashion shows, like those never end up being like common clothes that people wear out, right? Like I if you go to places like New York with a lot of hipsters, or maybe like Portland, you'll see some weird just clothing and stuff like that. People who push limits, and I'm okay with like expressing yourself. I mean, I grew up as a metalhead. I grew up around industrial music. I was around goth kids. I was around industrial kids. I was around metalheads and hardcore kids and skaters, and like, yeah, they always push the limits and whatnot. But like the high fashion, but it's different because it's like, it wasn't about selling you some like, really expensive piece of clothing that makes you look ridiculous. Like, it's more like, I'm just going to dress the way I want. And I kind of, was it The Cure who said like, high fashion's like a ripoff or something like that. And it's kind of, it's true. Like, you could literally make an outfit out of like anything. If you're creative, like you can buy, just a regular t-shirt, and you wear like maybe like some cool looking, a jacket that's like not expensive, and put together, maybe some cool boots, and then a lot. And the crazy thing is, a lot of like high fashion now looks like that stuff, like the stuff that people would just kind of put together, like skaters and people on tour who are just wearing like ripped jeans because they're on tour and they don't give a shit, and now like ripped jeans is $300.
We were in New York for the Free World NYC 9/11 conference, and we just got done with it, and then we went out to dinner. So we're at this place. They put us down in the lower level, and I'd never been to this restaurant in New York before, but up against one side of the wall was all like glass windows that you would think, like, normally if you were on a sidewalk, if it was bordering a sidewalk, it would look out on the sidewalk. We're almost kind of down in the basement of this building. And so we're looking at almost like out the windows is kind of like the back of house of this building. So there's all kinds, there's like freight elevators and all kinds of things going on. Well, apparently what also was happening, and I was there with Don Jeffries and Richard Gage and Tony Arterburn and Billy Ray Valentine. And we were all having dinner, and we were looking out this window, and there was a fashion show that was going on, and they were doing all of the staging for it in the back of house, but it was right in front of our window. So we're watching all this stuff, and I keep seeing these people walk by in these ridiculous outfits, like doing the strut and everything. What the fuck is going on here? I'm looking around, and I was like, oh my God, we are essentially backstage at a fashion show, watching them walk by us as they're just about to walk out through the drapes and do the runway. So we're watching the runway show, and I'm telling you, I saw some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen. And and it wasn't just women, it was men too walking by. And I was like, who's buying this? Like, in what universe are you? And it's expensive too. It's not like it's cheap, but you're looking at this going, if you gave it to me for free and gave me $1,000 and said, you've got to wear this all night long around New York City, I'm not doing any of that. This looks dumb. And yet they're going to go out there and sell it. So it all feels very scammy. You've seen the guys come out there in the, like essentially like trash bags, and they're walking, and you're like, this is high fashion, or is this money laundering? Because it feels like fraud to me.
Well, you look at art in general and music, anything, painting, modern art, whatever it may be. It's like, just because, like, I'm all for pushing the limits and doing something different, but it doesn't mean it's good just because it's different, right? So it's just like, people can't question it because it's like, oh, look, he's pushing the boundaries. Look, he's doing this with design. I mean, it's like kind of like the Yeezys, the sneakers. Like, they were some of the ugliest shoes I've ever seen, and
the ugliest.
Ugliest, and people bought them because of I just sometimes like going against the grain because everything looks alike. I think people just like the fact that it's different. It's not good, it's not better, it's just different, and people like different, and I think that that's a big part of it. I remember when Slipknot came out, and nobody knew their identities. They would take pictures with their hands in their face, so anytime they took fan pictures, people wouldn't be able to see their actual faces. And they had 9 members. They had 3 drummers, 1 drummer, 2 percussionists. They had a keyboardist. They had a DJ. I'm like, what the? I've never seen anything like this. But their music was good, and I'm just like, okay, like this isn't just different. This is really, really good. And but then there was other bands that were like different that I just didn't like, and I'm just like, this is really unique and different, but it sucks. I don't enjoy it. I don't get anything out of it. And that's the thing about art. You can always sell it as like, you don't get it. It's beyond your understanding, or it's you make some story. Sometimes modern art has better stories than the art. I'm like, the story is better than the art. Like you say it means this, it means that. I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, it just looks like something simple, and then you have a complex story to go with it.
So the new Macroaggressions logo has the duct tape banana instead of the stars for 2 reasons. One, because we've become a banana republic, but the duct tape banana is that Miami modern art Basel show where it was the white wall, and then someone had taken a piece of duct tape and duct taped a banana to this white wall. And then they were like, this piece is called, I don't know, Inspiration or something. And it sold for $125,000. And it's like, what? You sold what? Did you sell the banana? Did you sell the wall? What did you sell? And then some guy came up and took the banana and ate it. And everyone's like, see, it's part of the art. I was like, no, this is money laundering. That's what this is. That's exactly what this is. Horse shit. It's all nonsense. If you're telling me you've duct taped a banana to a wall and that's worth $125,000, you probably also think Hunter Biden's paintings are worth a lot of money and that they're telling you some deep story as well. It's just nonsense. But the funniest part of it all, whether it's the fashion shows or the art, is to watch this literally the worst art or the worst fashion you've ever seen. And everybody around them is like, oh, it's so great. Look at the lines on this. I love what this piece means. I love what this piece says to me. What does it say to you, man? What does the duct tape banana say to you? Because it says money laundering to me. Are you finding some esoteric meaning in it? Like, oh, we're all just a bunch of bananas duct taped to a wall. Like, is that? I mean, so it feels very phony and it feels very fraudulent. And the people that are applauding it feel just as fake as the art themselves.
Well, I would disagree because with Hunter Biden and Bush and his crappy art, because I think like if I said, hey, there's a serial killer, this guy who bombed countries and he's a fucking murderer and he's absolutely insane. He has no sympathy for his actions, never apologizes, justifies it. He's a fucking psychopath with a lot of power and he's making art. You'd be like, yo, I want to see that shit, and it's so, like
I do. Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I have to agree with you on that. It would actually be kind of funny if you're like, hey, you want to see my art collection? I'm like, not really. Like, I've got a Hunter Biden. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Do you really? It's like, oh yeah.
Well, if it's real art.
Hunter Biden, yeah, he signed it and everything. And he signed it and dipped his pen in cocaine and signed it. You'd be like, get out of here. You know what I mean? Like it would be kind of funny. It'd be funny. Well, it wouldn't be like.
Well, think about the person making the art, right? Like Hunter Biden's a legit crackhead, and he's a legit maybe allegedly also underage women, allegedly a lot of I say women, girls, meant but it's allegedly, of course, but he's not a normal person per se or psychologically sane and probably has a lot of childhood trauma, obviously his sister's diary and all that, that whole conspiracy with that, but it's almost like Jeffrey Dahmer, right? If he had art, I'd be intrigued with it. I'm like, because art is supposed to represent what's inside internally, emotionally, psychologically, trauma, all these things. So it's like I would look for those hints of their childhood trauma or their worldview, the screwed up worldview they have. I would look for things that represented that in the art, right? I mean, look at the Jeffrey Epstein art, right? Like the Bill Clinton in the dress in what was her face in Monica Lewinsky's dress, right? The blue dress. You got Bush with the paper airplanes being thrown in. I mean, the fact that people look at that and it's almost like it's an inside joke with the elite saying, "Oh yeah, we did these things. Oh yeah, we're fucked up. Oh yeah, we're gonna put it out there." And we're going to laugh about it, and you can't do anything about it. Look at the Podesta art, all the crazy shit they had on. And then, God forbid, you bring up Pizzagate with anybody, and everybody loses their mind. Oh, that's been debunked. I'm like, what exactly has been debunked? That the elite are trafficking children? Because according to the Franklin scandal, according to Jeffrey Epstein and everybody linked to him, and all the women who said that they saw high-ranked politicians and people in fashion and all this stuff, hanging out at these parties. I'm like, I don't think any of it has been debunked. I mean, the only thing that has been debunked is the fact that maybe in that pizzeria, there wasn't as much craziness going on there as maybe the picture that they painted, but there was still a lot of sketchy stuff with the emails that were released with all the code words, which never really, I've never really found a satisfying answer to what that all meant, and neither did they even try to explain it away. Well, that was the other thing. They ignored it and let the masses just kind of argue among themselves on what it meant. But they if there was a actual logical explanation to what those things meant when you say you wanted this many pizzas or this many hot dogs or whatever, why didn't you just come out and clarify? you didn't clarify, because I'm not sure what couldn't have been any logical explanation for that stuff. So like, it's insane.
The debunker guy, the guy that wrote the story that quote debunked Pizzagate, just went to federal prison for child porn. So like that guy that guy is
Wow.
So it's like, oh, it's been debunked. Yes, by the guy that just went to prison for having all these images of kids. You're gonna have to try again. Explain the $65,000 of hot dogs being flown in from Chicago, and take as long as you need to explain that somebody found a white handkerchief that might be cheese pizza related and needs walnut sauce. Like, again, yeah, like you said, if you've got an explanation for this, I'd love to hear it. If you want to explain to me what was worth $65,000 that Obama was flying in from Chicago that is described as hot dogs, please fill me in on the details, because I know about the Franklin scandal. I know what was going on with these guys. We know all about this. I know what the Enterprise, George H.W. Bush's group, was doing with these kids. I know the entrapment, blackmail operations. I know what these guys are into when they're off the clock. They're into all this stuff. So, so, the normies out there that find themselves thinking that they're talking about art and then winding up talking about art in a pizza place, and then finding out that that pizza place maybe has some connections to human trafficking, then it's, of course they're going to be like, oh, that's crazy, and let's dismiss this and everything. But you're dismissing it, but you don't know anything about it.
How do you dismiss his Instagram page? How do you dismiss all that weird? We have kids. Like I'm like, if I didn't have kids, maybe there's some way I could, in my mind, logically explain, like, okay, this is just innocent. But when you have kids, and you're just like, I couldn't even imagine posting something like that, and I couldn't. And then some of the comments, who's done a great job with some of this is Memory Hold. He's I haven't talked to him in a while, but some of his documentaries, which have been, a lot of them have been banned off YouTube or whatnot. But I think he's now posting them on Rumble and other platforms. But he does amazing jobs of showing you screenshots of these comments and connecting the dots and all this stuff. And it's like, it brings you to some dark places. And I mean, did you watch Sound of Freedom?
No, I never saw it.
It's on Amazon Prime now. I just watched it with my wife, but it's it's good. I mean, obviously the main character, Jesus, also known as Jesus Christ, the guy who played Jesus, and it's funny because his initials are the same as Jesus, and I believe he has some other similarity. Was he born the same day? I don't know. Maybe they have the same birthday. There was some weird thing, but it was in the film, I mean, and obviously it's a fictional film, but it kind of brings into perspective like how common this is. I mean, child trafficking's a real industry. Like, it's a legit industry. It's not like some random dude who lives down the street who, ends up just looking up some child porn online or whatever. Like, it's literally a industry, a giant industry. And I don't know if you remember that comedian Barry Crimmins.
The name sounds familiar.
He was from Boston or from Massachusetts, and actually it was funny because I was trying to get him on my show, and then he eventually, by the time we were going back and forth, couldn't find a date that worked, and then eventually I lost kind of the ability to connect with him, and then he ended up passing away. But there's a great documentary about him that came out before he passed away, and he was molested as a child, and he found out that AOL and in their chat rooms, AIM, remember those days? And when you had to listen to a phone, dial up before getting online, and you had to scream at your mother like, "Mom, get off the phone! I'm trying to get online." But so he found out that AOL knew that people were trading child porn, but didn't do anything about it and let it happen over and over again. Because I'm assuming because people were subscribing to the service or whatever it was, and ends up going to court and testifying that was the case. And so it's like, that's like a small little like public example of it that's like not a conspiracy, and it was documented in this documentary, and it was public. They knew it. They got caught. They got in trouble for it. I mean, that's like even like with Twitter. Remember when Chrissy Mayer, right? Chrissy Mayer was posting like all these accounts have child porn, and I've been reporting them, and nobody's doing shit about it. And I was curious because I'm like, is this for real? I would click on there and see some things I wish I didn't see. And I'm just like, holy fuck. And then underneath the comments, you'd see, I've reported them too. I've reported them too. I've reported them too. So you have all these reports. I'm like, you're not getting rid of this, but yet you're banning the president of the United States of America. You're banning Alex Jones. You're censoring this person. You're getting me in trouble for vaccine information or anything that's anti-big pharma. But yeah, you can't, like, this isn't a top of your priority list. Like, it's fucking insane. The fact that porn is on Twitter, I think is still a problem. Like, I don't understand, like, if eventually my kids, when they're teenagers, might want a Twitter account. And when they're on Twitter, it's like, dude, why do they need to see all this like raunchy stuff? Like, especially when you're not there like looking for porn. Like sometimes it literally will just pop up, some account or some like, what were you going to jump in?
No, they it's such an easy thing for them to fix. Like it seems like
you would think so.
But there's no appetite. In the same way, the Instagram, and we're not just putting this all on Twitter too, but like Instagram, Facebook, like they have massive allegations against Instagram for showing like groups that are connected to child trafficking, like as suggesting that you follow these people and these people, and it's like if the general public knows these are a bunch of pedophiles running these operations, then you mean to tell me that the management doesn't know this as well? Of course they know this. So then the next logical question is, if we know it and they know it, and yet it's not getting stopped, why? It has to be allowed to happen. And if that is allowed to happen, and that's a good thing, but the president coming on and talking, whether you like him or not, is a bad thing, or Alex Jones or whatever, then just admit that you're censoring and just admit that this is about something else. Because it can't be about safety. It can't be about the president says mean things online. If you're allowing child porn, any sort of talk of this person needs to get off of this platform because they're a threat, any of that needs to, that is just nonsense at that point. You have to be consistent, and they're not consistent in it. And so it leads me to think that this is meant to happen, made to happen, right?
Well, the world's much darker than people realize. Like I've obviously, you can go down the memory hole documentaries and see some really sick shit. But I mean, just Jeffrey Epstein, obviously all those rabbit holes, the Franklin scandal, the Washington call boys, and during the Bush administration, the Clinton Foundation and the Haiti scandal where they were transporting kids, undocumented kids, like all this stuff. And it's just like, it's endless. But it's like, there is a dark web. There's a place where sick things happen, where sick people exist. It's funny because it's like, so recently, every once in a while, because I've been so obsessed with podcasts and learning about all the things, all the different topics, nutrition, history, geopolitics, and all the little rabbit holes you go down, that usually art has been one of those things that I used to love that I neglected a lot. And every once in a while I'll be like, hey, you know what, let me see, because I like to keep up with like new bands and new music and what trends music is going and whatnot. And so I'll go down some rabbit holes and I'm just like, oh, let me see like what's in right now, like in the metal scene, in the techno scene, EDM, whatever. And like, there's a lot of like weird shit out there. And I'm just like, when I grew up, like I liked a lot of really dark stuff. I liked, I was a Nine Inch Nails fan. That was like, dark for like mainstream, but I would go down to like the really like Combi Christ and Suicide Commandos and like just really dark shit, like Cannibal Corpse, 6 Feet Under, like the death metal stuff. And I loved Slipknot. To me, it was like the darker the better. And now as a father and as an adult, I'm just like, fuck, man. Like, this is just, I don't know how I'd feel if my kids were like watching some really artsy music video with like blood and suicide and pushing the limits. I'd be a little concerned about like psychologically how they could handle it or what effect they would have. There's a band that's actually like taking off, and they're pretty good. I like them, but called Sleep Token. I don't know if you heard about them. It's funny how like talking about like the luck that we'll never have. They had a song, like a part in a song, just take off on TikTok, and all of a sudden they went from like a fairly like kind of unknown band to like all of a sudden they're ginormous. And but they don't show their identities. They're from London. They wear masks. They don't show their identities. They don't do any press, no interviews, nothing. Like, so literally all you get is a random song that's released from time to time, and that's it. They don't, and whatnot. But their videos are, are dark and edgy and all this stuff. And I just feel like a old fart sometimes. Like, I'm like, I don't know when I would be okay with them kind of diving deep into this. And like, there's even like artsy movies that I loved. There's one of my favorite movies of all time is a movie called Ink, INK, and it's a really artsy kind of low budget movie, but it was a really good movie. It was funny because it was one of those movies that like, when I watch a really artsy movie, like 5 minutes into it, I decide like this is gonna suck. Like this is just gonna be really artsy, but there's not gonna be any real meaning or metaphors that you can really bite into that you're gonna kind of leave it feeling satisfied and feel like, okay, this was deep. Because some artsy movies are just like stupid. Like you're just like, okay, you're doing a lot of weird shit, but it doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean there's like a really deep, well thought out meaning behind it. But Ink was different. Like 5 minutes into it, I thought I was going to hate it. And then little by little, I ended up falling in love with it. And, but even now I'm just like, the beautiful thing about art is that it does go deep into, like, you can neglect those things. Like you can neglect the dark side of humanity, but art kind of helps people understand like it does exist though, because when you look at like a horror movie, right, that was somebody's imagination. Somebody had to think about those things. Somebody had the desire to want to put this on film and make horror movies, like, and show people suffering and show people screaming and show people in pain, even if it's artificial, not real. But it's like, it makes you think like, what causes that, or what, but it was weird because growing up, I loved that. I loved, like, it's almost like I understood there's a dark side of humanity, and I found it interesting because I'm like, it exists and people don't want to talk about it. But I always say like Slipknot's first album, and I keep bringing up Slipknot, I don't know why, but Slipknot's first album, like there's certain songs on that album that sounded like you plugged a speaker into the mind of a psychopath, and that was the music that came out, and that was created. Like, it was so dark, it was so just like moody and just wild. Like, you felt like you're in the mind of a psychopath, and to me it was so intriguing. Like, it made me want to listen to more. I remember like just growing up listening to even early Marilyn Manson and like all this, this crazy stuff. And obviously he's a crazy person too. But I'm just like, looking back, I'm just like, dude, it's like, so, and then the conspiracy world, I'm like, and I've neglected that world for a while. Cause like I said, like a lot of these other things have taken my attention. But then like, as I get older, I'm like, wow, man, I used to love all that really dark stuff. And now I feel like culturally, like, was it trying to control people? Was it trying to disturb people? Was it trying to tell me something? And then I'm like, I've neglected so much of that, but have I? Because the conspiracy world, I find intrigue in it for many of the same reasons. Like, we are uncovering that the world is a much darker and scarier place than most of us understand, and most of us even care to admit, right? Like, a lot of people know Jeffrey Epstein existed and knows that okay, now it's been proven, and even mainstream media reported that a lot of the elite were human traffickers and underage women and all this stuff and boys and all and Singer, whatever that director is that did the X-Men movies, he was having parties with little kids. But how many people actually want to like dive deep into that and really to the point like learn so much about it that it shatters their worldview, right? Like a lot of people are like, no, ignorance is bliss. I'd rather not know this. And so I think when you look at art and culture and music and stuff like that, were you into really dark shit? And if you were, how, like, being a father and thinking about like just the young youth coming up, do you look at it differently?
Well, I was never the darkest stuff I was ever into was like being like 10, 11 years old and watching like horror movies, or like my buddy had like Fangoria magazine, that was like would show you all like the magazine stuff behind the horror. That was like the extent of it. When it came to music, no, I never really got too deep into like dark, super heavy music or anything like that. I had a buddy who was in a band who their stuff was a little, it was like different and sort of grungier and darker and everything. But I no, um, I never really got into like I never went and saw gore and got jizzed on in the audience by some, or anything like that.
I which festival I saw him at, and yeah, Guar was there. They are a weird and entertaining band. But
I did like Kiss. I did like Kiss. That was about the extent of like as dark as I think I got. If you listen to Kiss's lyrics are all about like getting chicks and stuff like that. It's not even really dark.
Alice Cooper was dark.
Alice Cooper was dark. Alice Cooper was a dark dude though. You know what I mean? Like a guy who was into like, he was really strung out on drugs and all this stuff. What's interesting about Kiss was always they were sober. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley are sober. And Peter Criss and Ace Frehley, different story. But they had the mask and Gene Simmons with the blood and the lasers. And I remember I did go back and see them when they put the makeup on in like 96 and started that tour again. I went and saw them and I was like, this is a great show. So, but that's not dark. That's Hollywood, stage darkness. That's not like, you want to see something really it's not like Creep Show dark where it's like, oh, you want to see a band that'll really scare the hell out of you, let's go see these people. I never got into that wasn't my scene. But I will say this though, that at it regardless, as a parent now and knowing that you've got to kind of keep an eye on that stuff, sure, it worries me because you want to sort of be there as a guardrail and say like, oh, this is not how this is not how most of reality is. There's a dark side to people and they're exploring it and they're doing it in music, and maybe they're doing it because they're working out some shit. Maybe they're working out, a lot of, as we all know, a lot of people that go into music or, do so or they're like tortured artists, right? They come out of like some bad. I think if you asked, the 100 of the top rock musicians of all time, like what was their childhood like? Probably not great. And so some of this comes out of the experiences that they had. I mean, yeah, there's some happy, the Birds music, and it's like, we're all just gonna, come on, everybody, let's come together, and all that stuff. There's that for sure. And then there's the bands that are talking about some, then there's Korn. And everyone goes, why did they name it Korn with a K? It's like, oh, I don't know. Kiddie porn? Like, maybe. I don't know. There's some dark shit going on there. Why are all these people always on such heavy drugs? Well, I don't know. Maybe because they're trying to forget their childhood in some way, shape, or form. So some of it is like, you want to make sure that like with your kids, it's like, you can't do the thing where you're like, you can't watch this. If you do that, they're going to definitely want to watch it twice as much. But if you can explain to, well, this is one form of music, one form of expressing yourself. It doesn't mean that everybody's like this. And maybe maybe your kid goes through their goth stage for like a year or two, and then they kind of come out of that. I don't know. I don't know that I certainly wouldn't want to. I mean, I am aware that stuff is out there, but the strategy for how you deal with your kids with regard to their exposure to it, I think is worth a conversation, because everybody's got a different take on how you should do that. I mean, you can't ignore it, but you also can't say this is totally off limits unless you want the exact opposite effect. So how do you do that? How do you have the conversation about, like, well, listen, this is what it is. You could be into it or not, but um, there's a there's some there's a darkness behind it. And of course, when you're talking about Hollywood on top of that, there's a darkness in Hollywood too. And there's this desire to, like, I want to be the best. I want to be famous. And what is that? Well, if you want to be famous, I mean, Lil Nas X is famous for sucking devil dick. You know what I mean? Like, do you want to be famous for that? Because you could go down that path. We can make you famous for that.
Isn't that where the elite and these celebrities kind of, I think, where they see eye to eye, and why there's so much collaboration between the two? Because I think, like, the elite are equally as sick and dark as some of these artists, but the artists are like, okay, I got some trauma, or I have some sick thoughts, and I'm going to make something beautiful out of it. I'm going to make a beautiful song, some beautiful piece of art, whatever it may be. And the elite, who aren't artistic, they have the same sick thoughts, but they use their resources to get what they want. So if it's, child porn, if it's human trafficking, if it's, murdering somebody, assassinations, torturing, whatever it may be. I mean, these people exist. Like, we know that people get tortured. Well, think about, like, this is one part of it that people don't think about. Somebody is hired for the job of doing the torturing. So when people say, like, when we talk about a spiritual war, when we talk about good and evil, you look at art represents the fact that there is some evil that exists, because what you're doing is you're highlighting the fact that humans, if you look deep, or if you have a fucked up childhood or whatever, like, there can be dark thoughts, there can be evil thoughts, there can be some you can create something out of that highlights the trauma and the darkest parts of humanity. And then you look at, like, even in politics or whatever, like, look at like we talked about Bush, knowing that he's responsible for a lot of fucking deaths. Obama, responsible for a lot of fucking deaths. When you hear about torturing, like I said, like, somebody is hired for that job. That there's a person or even like assassinations, right? We talk about that person who got assassinated, but we never talk about the guy who pulled the trigger, the guy who has zero morals, the guy who's like, yeah, my job is to kill somebody for hire. Like, I'm hired to kill somebody, and I have zero morals, has zero effect on my psyche, zero effect on my, on my well-being or whatever. And, just imagine being in a room with somebody suffering, somebody being tortured, screaming, begging for their lives, begging for, you'd hear stories about Gitmo, people who get tortured and then come to find out, like, they're not who they thought they were, like, 3 years later, and you're like, oh, they just got tortured and detained for no reason or accidentally, and we just go, oops, but those people are psychopaths. Now take those people, and some of them exist in high ranks of politics. Some people exist.
Ron DeSantis ran the psychological operation unit at Guantanamo Bay.
He did?
Yeah.
I did not know that. What?
I mean, this. That's
wait.
an
So why
audition.
You figured he'd know a little bit about psychology, and he would be more likable. He'd be able to trick us into thinking that he has a personality.
This is the real problem here too, is that this negative behavior is positively reinforced, where if we lived in a healthy society, somebody like Ron DeSantis, who comes out of that world, would be shunned, and instead he's a candidate for president. And so like this reward system is totally inverted too, because it's like you would think that the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, that there wouldn't be a massive cover up where, oh, everybody knew what Harvey was up to. No, if you lived in a healthy society or an industry that was run by good people, Harvey Weinstein would have been thrown off of the Chateau Marmont decades ago. Somebody would have taken care of that problem. But that's not how it goes. You wind up finding that this darkness is rewarded because the people that are in positions of power are dark themselves. It's when I had a Hollywood agent talk to me about this years ago, where he was like, what, he's like, you don't understand what this industry, what this business is all about. And I was like, well, tell me. And he's like, I can't tell you the ins and outs of it. But he said, you're a good person. I remember him saying to me, he's like, you're a good kid. And I was right out of college. He's like, you're a good kid. And he said, you need to stay away from this industry as far as you can. I said, well, I have no interest in being involved in Hollywood. He said, okay, well, as long as you don't have an interest in like trying to succeed at all costs, you'll be fine. But if you have this, like, I'll do whatever it takes to make it in this business, I just need you to know that this is a really dark business that has some sort of pitfalls that nobody sees until it's too late. And I was like, I appreciate the conversation. I specifically remember the guy. He was a guy who had been an agent for 30 years, 40 years. Real good. He was actually one of the good guys there who was like, I need to have this conversation with you before things get weird. And I remember that. I do remember that conversation. I remember thinking, what is he talking about? And never really knowing what he was talking about until much, much later on. And really, wait, if you really want to make it in Hollywood, you have to ask yourself, like, why? Is it the fame? If it's the fame, then like, is there a deficiency in your life that you're trying to fill? If you're trying to fill it with fame, be careful. I don't know if that's always the right method for everyone. Some people I think can handle it, and some people I think cannot. And we see the ones that cannot handle it. They flame out. They wind up dead in an alley somewhere. They kill themselves, or they OD, or they're in and out of rehab over and over and over again. Is that what is that what you really want out of life? Or do you just want to be respected? Do you want people to recognize you on the street? Well, I don't know. I think that would get annoying after a while.
Did you see that interview with Cat Williams that went viral?
I saw parts of it.
Yeah. So one part of it, he talks about Weinstein and how in a room full of people said that he'll give him a role if he lets. Weinstein said he wants to blow Cat Williams, and if he lets him, he'll give him the role in a room full of people. And like nobody like said, "Oh fuck, what the hell did he just say?" Everybody just like casually like just let him answer the question like it's completely business as normal, this and that. Yeah, and what's hilarious, and I've said this before on the show, is that I'm pretty sure the Obama girls intern for Weinstein. And I always say this. I'm like, you cannot tell me that all this stuff was happening openly and Obama didn't fucking know what was going on. I mean, this guy controls freaking, the NSA, the CIA, whatever. Like, he knows what people are doing. He's listening to everybody. He's drone attacking people. Like, you have metadata that's, on everybody. And you're telling me, like, you didn't know, like, but I don't know if he knew, and they just knew, obviously, the Obama girls were off limits, like, don't do anything raunchy or whatever. But, like, that's how normal it must be that he's like, yeah, he's a sick fuck. But I'm the president of the United States of America. I'm surrounded by sick fucks. So he's just one of the many that my family works with and is around and whatever, And then have you seen the interview with Mark Epstein? That he's been doing interviews lately. Jeffrey Epstein's
I heard
brother.
about it. That he's saying that he has questions. Oh, shut up, Mark. We know what you're doing in that apartment complex that your brother bought for you. That's where you were housing all the models that were getting trafficked. So the fact that Mark Epstein's like, oh, I don't know what was going on. Oh, shut the fuck
I know he kept saying, so he was on Cuomo's podcast, which is the only episode I ever listened to, because why would I want to listen to Chris Cuomo? And then he was on, who else was he? Was he on Tucker's? He was on somebody else's show. But he kept saying, he's like, oh, I don't, you could tell he had, he maybe Pierce Morgan. And he got mad because they were asking questions about some of the stuff his brother was doing. And he's like, no, we talked about this prior. He's like, I'm only talking about the suicide. I'm only talking about his murder. I'm only talking about that. So he's just trying to go around to expose the fact that he didn't kill himself, which I guess is good, because even though this guy's probably a piece of shit himself, at least he's starting to, re-spark the conversation that, like, dude, there's a lot of inconsistencies with this. Somebody murdered him. Somebody wanted him dead, or many people wanted him dead. And I'm I'm still kind of curious on Ghislaine and why she's still alive, and but like, why this was one of the biggest stories when it came. Well, obviously it's been around for a long time, but when it finally, like, the whole thing was, and I think we've talked about this, like, the whole thing was kind of really, I was really skeptical of the whole thing, because it's like, he was a name many of us talked about for many years, and then all of a sudden, like, and there was that video, right, of Amy, whatever her name was, talking about how, like, she wanted to do a story on him. Yeah. She worked for ABC, wanted to do a story on him. Yep, and they squashed the whole thing. Like, no, you're not talking about this. And then all of a sudden, so it went from, like, the person that you couldn't talk about, that you couldn't even touch, because remember that sweetheart deal he got in Florida and all this stuff. And it's like, you couldn't touch him, you couldn't talk about him, and then all of a sudden the doors open, like, it's okay to talk about him now, and everybody can do a story on. And so that whole thing, I was super skeptical about. I'm like, why did they get the green light for everybody to talk about him now? And I'm curious if it was because they wanted, maybe that was the plan all along, was like, okay, we can't suppress this for too much longer because he's a loose cannon, or he's doing a bunch of stupid shit, and then if we lock him up, then we can take him out, right? Maybe.
Well, yeah, and of course the Epstein story, in what the general public knows, even just about Jeffrey Epstein, is a limited hangout. There's so much more to know. But the idea that Epstein is like a lone wolf doing that is in and of itself is a limited hangout too. So it's like he got to the end of his useful life. He's done what he's been doing, which, by the way, started in the 80s. Which wasn't anything. It wasn't like some new thing. Amy Robach says, like, well, we had all the information on him. We had him dead to rights. We had all this stuff. Good for one component of him. Do you have the Iran Contra stuff on Jeffrey Epstein? Because we could talk about that. Do you have the fun with physics parties on the island with all the scientists? Because I could get into that with her. Do you know about the Southern Air Transport, what they're doing with the airplanes? Can we talk about Zorro Ranch? So it's like, there is Epstein was totally off limits until you could talk about him. But then when you could talk about him, you could only talk about certain components of him. That was the only thing. So he's, you don't need a guy running sexual blackmail entrapment operations in the era of deepfakes. Jeffrey Epstein's obsolete for that stuff. Now you don't even need it. You don't need an island. You have a digital island. You can make everything look like they're there. You can make things look a certain way. So he's sort of obsolete in that. And look, he knew too much about a lot of things. And these guys don't have any sort of loyalty to one another, except to the extent that maybe we're all working on the same project. So I don't want you to get pinched, because then it makes the project harder to complete. But as far as like, oh, we got to go save our buddy Jeffrey Epstein, this was the conversation I had with Sean Atwood about this, because when it first happened, when he died in this prison in New York, and there was speculation, you see the body come out, you see part of his face, and you go, oh, it looks like Epstein. But they're like, why are we being made to see part of his face? Like, you could very easily have covered that up, but you didn't. And then you release those pictures. It feels like for a reason. Maybe you want us to think that was him. Maybe it wasn't him, So I was talking to Sean Atwood about this, a guy who did 7 years in a U.S. penitentiary, ran a a drug trafficking enterprise, understands how all this stuff works, and on top of that has written 15 books about just this very sort of thing, including the Clinton cartel and what they've been doing. And Sean's explanation for this was that, is he alive or did they fake his death? Yeah, I mean, like, did they fake his death and he's sitting on an island somewhere, or in Israel someplace, or is he really dead? And Sean's explanation was he's really dead. And the reason why he's really dead, though, I'm not trying to say that it isn't possible, but his explanation for it made sense to me. If you've got a guy like this who has all this information and he gets caught, you bail, and let's say you're the octopus that's above this whole thing, right? Managing this thing, watching one of your guys get arrested. If you get him out of prison, if you fake his death and get him out of prison, you send the message to everybody in the network that if you get in trouble, we'll come get you. And he says that is a message that never gets sent. The message that in actuality gets sent in these networks is if you get in trouble and get yourself caught, if you talk, we'll murder you. And he was talking. He might not have been talking about everything, but he was talking. So you cannot set the precedent that they're going to come make things happen and get you out of there and save your ass. If you get caught, you're done. That's the message he said should be sent. Now, where there is a gray area in this particular case is that if ever there was a guy who had the connections, who had the money, who knew New York, who knew the people that could make it happen, it would have been Epstein. He did have the resources. He did have not just the connections, but the ability to lean on these connections and say, if I die in this prison without you getting me out, I'm going to make sure that all the information about you comes out as soon as I'm dead. So you better make it your interest to get me out of this place, or you're screwed too. So there is that. But but talking to Sean, he just said no. He said he said that Epstein would have been as disposable as a paper towel to them. They would have never in a million years let him out. So I don't know.
Aren't you, just to end it on this note, because it's obviously a very intriguing story, and a lot of people have asked me about it. They've like, hey, whose work should I pay attention to? Obviously, people like Whitney Webb and others have done amazing work on it. But a lot of people have asked me for a documentary, right? And every time somebody asks me, I'm always like, there's documentaries about every single topic you think of. There isn't one good documentary about Epstein. Like, there's not, besides like the Netflix stuff that really just makes you sympathize with the victims, but doesn't get into any of the, below any layers. It doesn't unpeel the onion and really get to the, the really juicy stuff. Why hasn't Alex Jones or somebody who has the capabilities to put out a decent film, like, not put something together? I'm kind of curious. I'm like, what are people waiting for? It's such a hot topic. There's so many layers to it. There's so many things you could investigate. I'm kind of stunned that there's not like a good alternative media documentary about it. I'm even what's his face, Corbett, another one who hasn't really done one specific, not that I know of, and I keep a pretty close eye on his work, and I'm not sure he's done one specifically. He's done one on Seville, on the Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastings, right? Haster. He's done one on those guys. He's but not one, I don't think, specifically on Jeffrey Epstein. So it's something for people to do, because I think it would do well. And if they had one that didn't pull punches and actually, dig deep into the story.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there will be one that will come out soon, because the world needs to know about Jeffrey Epstein and all this darkness. And I don't, and not to dwell in the darkness, but just as a barometer, just so that you know that it's out there, so that you can understand that we live in a world where there are sharks out there. And you need to know the signs, that when you see them, you need to understand that when your high school daughter comes home with a couple $100 extra that you didn't give her, that now you're in this paradigm where like there is the possibility that there could be some sort of Jeffrey Epstein situation going on that you're unaware of. And that would have never been in your mind had there not been this case. But since there is, now people know about that, and it's in there, not to dwell on it necessarily, but just to know that it is an option. So if anything remotely good came out of the Epstein situation, and there really wasn't a whole lot, but I guess the one thing is that some parents are now realistic about what's happening, and that if there is in fact the you know an Epstein out there in their community, now they know kind of what to look for, or that they should be paying attention, because a lot of parents are asleep at the wheel. But we'll see. And as far as the alternative media making a good Epstein documentary, hopefully it's coming. I mean, hopefully there's still more of that story to tell, and we'll see how it goes. But
Yeah, Chris Hansen did a interview on PBD podcast. I think it was early last year, and they went deep into like so many the predators and fashion, Nygar and all this stuff. And it was actually a really good one. And you listen to that podcast, and it definitely scares the shit out of you in regards to like, doing a whole hour on just like how there's predators everywhere. And he's an expert in understanding on how they pick up your kids, how they contact your kids. It's like that stuff happens, man. It's crazy, but that's definitely something we're gonna have to do more of these. Like in the winter, work slows down for me. I got a lot more free time to do these. We could bullshit about so many different things, so we should do more of these. I also thought about live streaming on and doing like taking calls. I think that would be fun. Just like giving people advice and get brainstorming with just random people. I feel like we would rift well with just random chaos of people asking stupid shit or wanting advice.
Yeah. Please, here. When I started my weekend TNT radio show, they're like, we have a call-in number for people if they want to call in. And I was like, you could give out the call-in number. And I was like, oh, I'll give a call. I'll take it down. So I wrote it down, and then I started saying, I started opening the show and saying that it was I was doing the Bill Cooper thing where I was saying, this phone line is for time travelers only. Remember he used to do that in his show. This is time travelers only. This phone line for time travelers only. And the phone number I gave out was like the New York City, like insane asylum phone number, like an 800 number. So I was giving it out, just fucking with people, they're like, you got to give out the phone number for people to call in. I was like, well, I'll give out a phone number. Here's this phone number, but it's for time travelers only. And then the guy in the studio is like, what is that phone number to? I'm like, oh, it's to an insane asylum in New York. He's like, like, you're going to fit in fine over here.
That is so funny. Well, we'll have to brainstorm something. If nothing else, we'll definitely have to keep hooking up every week or every other week or a couple times a month, and just kind of bullshitting for an hour or so, because it's always fun. I always have a blast, and it's a good mix of just personal stories and less dark stuff, and then mixed in with some darker stuff. So hopefully people enjoy that. But thanks again, Charlie.
Slipknot album sales are going to spike after this episode. Something tells me.
Dude, I'm telling you, their first album, and it's hard because like musicians say, you spend your whole life writing your first album, and then you spend a year writing your second album, right? Like, so it's like you spend your whole life perfecting those songs. A lot of times your first album is a mix of songs that old songs that you've been working on and thinking about forever. And that first album was special. It was really, really good. There's a couple of bands that I can say like they had like just really hints of genius in their first album, and then slowly they struggled to do anything, in my opinion, equal to it. But that
like
first
our
album,
podcasts. Go back to our first episodes. They're the best. Then after that, it's all downhill after that.
Actually, I think of my podcast is the opposite. I think I sucked back then, and I just suck a little less now. I've gotten just a little.
I I was talking into the wrong side of the microphone for the first couple episodes.
I remember. I'll never forget this. It was the episode I did with James Evan Pilato, and I had this a microphone like this, maybe this one turned the opposite, and I'm listening. Why the fuck the audio sounds so weird? Then I'm like, oh, dude, I'm such a dumbass. So
it's perfect.
It's
Good.
wild.
I'm glad to know I wasn't the only moron.
No, definitely.
That's Ricky Varandas, everybody. For everyone from my audience, that's Ricky Varandas. You might know him. We do the Union of the Unwanted together with the great Sam Tripoli and Midnight Mike from OBDM. So support the Ripple Effect podcast. If you haven't subscribed to it, it's free. Just do that. If you haven't rated it, give him 5 stars. It takes 2 seconds. The algorithms force us to do this, because if we don't play this game where we get a not high enough star rating, then they stop suggesting our shows. It's so stupid. I wish I didn't have to do it, because I really don't care about the, like, give me 5 stars. But apparently it matters in the algorithm. So thank you guys in advance for helping us play that dumb game with the computer that we have to. So if you like the show, give it 5 stars. If you think we've earned it, you can connect with me. My brand new website is macroaggressions.io. Where's the best place to find you, Ricky?
The RippleEffectPodcast.com and everywhere else besides YouTube.
That's it, everybody. That's it, and that's all. Catch us. Catch our Union of the Unwanted show too. Every other weekend, every other week we try to do that on Monday nights live, 7:00 Eastern, over on Rockfin. It usually goes out a couple days later as an audio podcast, so you can catch that there. Big thanks to Ricky for joining us, and for me for joining the Ripple Effect from this Swapcast. So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.